Hi, everybody. We'll be going live in 2 minutes. Let me just get my headphones. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my live stream. I can see the comments now, so that's perfect. Thank you so much for joining me. It's great to talk to everybody. So just before we get started here, if there's any questions or anything, please put them in the chat. I'll try and get to them as soon as I can, and we'll go from there. So let's see. Wow, thanks for joining me here. And like I said, if there's any questions, we'll try and answer as many as we can. So I just wanted to start off with my new book. So I actually just got a copy of the final version, which is called The Hunger Code. And I just wanted to tell people sort of a little bit about what this book is and why I felt I really needed to write this. I actually wasn't going to write a book like this, but because I had written a lot in sort of 2000 after COVID and stuff. I sort of like, okay, that's it. The social media was quite toxic and everything. I wasn't planning to do anything else, but there's been so much new research into things like food addiction and ultra processed foods that I thought, wow, we really need to try to get a little bit more clarity on this. And then the more I dug into it, the more it was becoming clear why this book was really important. So it's been 10 years since the obesity code. And the obesity code sort of took us from, calories, which is a very sort of um, paradigm that really hasn't succeeded cutting calories, and moved it to sort of the hormonal aspect. And I think it was very successful at doing that, really talking about insulin, cortisol, and those other things. And the whole point is that if you look at, calories in, calories out, people say, well, body fat equals calories in minus calories out. And that's always true. However, you could rearrange those terms and you can simply say calories in equals body fat plus calories out, right? Which says that for every calorie that you eat, you can either store it or you can burn it. And which one it does is very, has dramatically different effects on how much body fat we carry. So therefore, it's not just the number of calories, it's what your body does with it, which is the hormones, right? So if you eat a food and it stimulates a lot of insulin, then you're going to store a lot of fat. And if you eat a different food that doesn't stimulate a lot of insulin, it's not going to. But it's more than that. So we talked about insulin and cortisol there, but the whole point is that there's a lot of people who can still eat carbohydrates and not get fat. Like there are entire civilizations. The Asian populations eat a lot of rice. The Irish used to eat a lot of potatoes. If you go to like Germany and Switzerland, a lot of potatoes there. So there's ways to change it, and it's not simply a low carbohydrate diet. It's about being low insulin, and they're not the same thing. So you can eat carbohydrates and still have a relatively low insulin response, and that's what a lot of the new data was coming out, and that's what I cover in the Hunger Code. So the Hunger Code is available for pre-order now. So before I dive into some of the main topics of what I really wanted to talk about, it is available for pre-order basically everywhere you go. And I would encourage you to pre-order it sort of soon because there are some special bonuses that we're giving away. And when you sign up for it, you can go to my website, Dr. Jason Fung. That's DOCTOR Jason Fung. And you can simply submit your receipts, and then you'll have access to a master class that we're going to run in March. So you have about pre-orders, and for the first 1 or 2 weeks after the book is released, you'll get access to this masterclass where we're going to take you over these concepts of hunger and how to deal with it. And this will be my first masterclass that I'm doing. Normally, would sell it on thefastingmethod.com for $499. So for the $30-ish that you get the book, you get over $500 of bonuses. So it's a good deal. If you are going to get it, I encourage you to pre-order it. It's coming out in a couple of weeks. And the masterclass will be sort of March 22nd. The other thing is going to have is some discount coupons to Era broth. Era is spelled AEIRA. And this is a bone broth. It's a powdered bone broth that we developed with thefastingmethod.com. Essentially, the reason we developed it was to help with fasting. And, we've talked about bone broth a lot. The problem really with bone broth is that it takes a long time to make. So I make my own bone broth, or I used to anyway, and it takes like 20 hours. So you get your bones and you boil them down. And the thing is that you had to really plan ahead. What the powdered bone broth does is it takes all the work out of it. And there's only one ingredient. It's just chicken bones. That's it. There's nothing else. So if you want to add a little bit of salt, add a little bit of miso, add a little bit of flavors with some vegetables, you can do it. And it's available in like 5 minutes. And if you compare it, it's about $30-ish. So it's about $1 something per serving. If you compare it to a pre-made broth, which I did recently, it's about a quarter of the price. And it's, convenient because it's a powder and you can actually take it wherever you go. So there's some coupons for that as well. So that's part of the bonuses for when you order the hunger code. So the reason that I wrote the hunger code is actually is because what I started to realize is that the hunger is a sort of overwhelmingly important topic that nobody talks about. If you think about it, we eat because we're hungry and we stop eating because we're full, right? So if you say that people are eating too much, the problem of the overeating is really a problem of overhunger, if you will. And therefore, the question is, what is hunger? How do you deal with it? And that's really the crux of the entire book. And when you look at it from a scientific standpoint, there's actually 3 types of hunger. And there's the sort of normal physical hunger that we all feel. And that's called homeostatic hunger. And homeostasis is a concept in biology where your body has a certain level. And if you go above, it's going to bring it down. If it goes down, it's going to bring it up. So it's much like a thermostat. And that's why we talk about the body fat thermostat in the hunger code, because your body has a certain body fat that it wants to carry. So if you are overweight, what it means is that your thermostat has been pushed up too high. So even if you try to lose weight, right? If you try and push it down, but your thermostat's up here, even if your weight goes down, it's going to try and bring it back up. It's going to either make you hungry, or if you don't eat, it's going to decrease your metabolic rate. So the point is that you need to adjust this thermostat. Just like if you go into a room and it's way too hot, you don't say, well, it's heat in minus heat out. Let me calculate all the sources of heat, all the sources of loss of heat, and see. No, you're going to say, who set the thermostat so high? And why don't I just turn it down? So it's the same thing in the body. If your body fat thermostat is set too high, you don't have to worry calories, metabolic rate, and all this stuff. You just have to say, why is it set so high? And it's really about the hormones. Certain hormones are going to push your thermostat up. Certain hormones are going to push it down. How do you know? Well, you can test it. If you give somebody insulin, they gain weight. Therefore, you've pushed their thermostat up. It had nothing to do with calories. It had nothing to do with willpower. It had to do with setting that thermostat high. If you give somebody insulin and keep their calories the same, they will still gain weight. How? Well, your metabolic rate must decrease, right? Your calories out must decrease. If you give somebody insulin, many times they're going to be more hungry. So you see that the thermostat, when you push it up, it activates mechanisms for you to gain weight. And that's going to be hunger or satiety. It's going to either turn up hunger or turn down satiety, or it's going to turn down your metabolic rate. And therefore, your weight is going to go back up. In fact, that's what virtually every single study in obesity medicine has shown. So the point is that the thermostat is there, but the thermostat is not what regulates it, right? Just like your room thermostat, it doesn't actually heat or cool the room. It activates a heater or air conditioner to heat or cool. So same thing with the body fat thermostat. When you push it up, it activates hunger or decreases your metabolic rate so that you still gain that weight. And that's how the body works. In fact, homeostasis is a very core biological principle. It affects everything. So it's the same thing for body temperature. You set a certain body temperature. When it's too hot, then you're going to sweat. When it's too cold, you're going to shiver. That's just the way it is. If you have body salt, if you or body water, if you drink a lot of water, you're going to pee it out. If you don't drink a lot of water, you're not going to pee it out. You're going to conserve that water. Either way, you're going to maintain homeostasis. But body fat homeostasis is much the same. So what I talk about in the first part, which is the hunger code, is how do you regulate this body fat thermostat that relates to the physical hunger, the homeostatic hunger? Because again, if you think about the problem of overeating, the problem is over hunger. And then you have to ask the question, why are you hungry? So it could be that the hormones are off. That's homeostatic hunger. But there's other types of hunger. And this is where it gets very interesting because, again, you have to understand why people are eating. Right? If you don't understand that, you won't be able to take care of that. So the second big type of hunger, and there's probably more, but I break it into three main types of hunger, is hedonic hunger. And hedonic refers to pleasure. So when you say eating, it's a pleasurable thing. We enjoy eating. So why would we deny that that's a reason why we might overeat? And this is where ultra processed foods and food addictions really starts to take place. So when you have the comfort food, for example, you're eating because it makes you feel better. So therefore, you're not eating because of the physical hunger. You're eating because of the emotional hunger. And that's hedonic hunger. And it's a real problem. If people are emotional eaters, you can't just say eat fewer calories because you're not taking care of that emotional side that's driving the eating, the emotional hunger that's driving the eating behavior. You got to take care of it before you'll get better. And the third type of hunger is conditioned hunger. So conditioned hunger is a social environmental problem because you compare two things. When you connect one thing to another thing constantly, then you're going to respond. And the classic experiment is Pavlov's dogs. So when you give Pavlov's dogs a meal, they'll salivate. Now that's a natural reaction. If you parry the sound of a bell consistently to the meal, the dogs will start salivating and get hungry at the sound of a bell. So what is happening is that you've taken a neutral stimulus, the bell, and turned it into a source of hunger because you've paired it so consistently with the food. Now you think about what's happening in the modern world. You eat, as soon as you get up, you eat the mid-morning snack, you eat when you get your coffee. You eat at lunchtime, you eat after school, you eat at dinner time, you eat after dinner time, you eat before bed, you eat in front of the TV, you eat in the car, you eat in the movie theater. Every single time you're stimulating hunger. And therefore, that's going to be a real problem. And some people call this food noise. And again, it's a real phenomenon. When you talk to somebody about food noise, they know exactly what you're talking about. It's a type of conditioned hunger. Until you recognize what is causing it, you can't take care of it. So if you start to use counter conditioning, for example, or extinction, there's entire fields of psychology that are dedicated to understanding conditioning, behavioral psychology. So if you do extinction, for example, excuse me, what you do is you pair the car, for example, and instead of eating all the time, you don't eat. So now you've gotten lots of experience, and you're sort of dissociated the eating and the car ride, or the eating in the movie theater, or whatever. And in that way, you're going to decrease hunger over time. And that's where fasting is really very beneficial, because you can break a lot of these type of conditioned hunger. So that's all covered in the hunger code. So it talks about the different types of hunger. It talks about the body fat thermostat, homeostatic hunger, hedonic hunger, conditioned hunger, and what to do about it. There's 3 golden rules of weight loss. And these rules are actually the oldest rules in the book. One, don't eat ultra processed foods, because I go over all the different ways that ultra processed foods actually sabotage your weight. And everybody thinks, it's all about calories, all about, no. It goes way beyond that, because these ultra processed foods actually cut across all 3 different types of hunger. So when you think about ultra processed foods, the processing reduces satiety. It makes it very easy to eat, very pleasurable to eat. And you get these really high hits of dopamine and insulin. What happens is you get these bursts of pleasure. So you not only stimulate the homeostatic hunger, but you don't get the satiety. You get the hedonic hunger because it's so pleasurable. And then because they're so easy and convenient and cheap, you pair them with food. You go to the car, you grab a bag of, chips, or, you go to the theater and you get popcorn or whatever. It's because they're easy. These ultra processed foods are also part of conditioning. Also, the advertising, right? It's on TV all the time, billboards, you walk into the mall, all this sort of stuff. So because it cuts across all 3 different types of hunger, it's really one of the most important things you can do, is cutting down ultra processed foods. And again, that's why the title of the book is Resetting Your Body Fat Thermostat in the Age of Ultra Processed Foods. The most recent dietary guidelines also talk about what an important aspect it is to eat real food. And really, if you can do that, you're actually so far ahead of the game. But it's way beyond calories. Like, what I'm trying to do is really present a very detailed, scientifically correct, physiologic look at eating behavior. So it's not simply diet, it's about eating behavior. So it goes into psychology, it goes into all these different things, because the more you know, like the better you know, the better you do, right? So if you don't understand a problem, you'll never be able to solve it. So that's where this sort of takes off from the obesity code and goes in. I see it as a sort of follow-up to this, and really takes it in a sort of a new direction. And what stuns me, sometimes I think about these things, and it's like, I read a lot of diet books, and just to see what people are talking about. And like 90% of the time, especially when it's an MD or a dietitian, they're talking about calories. And it's such a simplistic view of things. Hunger is obviously one of the most important things, because we eat when we're hungry. So why don't we ever talk about it? I mean, if you were to ask somebody, what are the 3 main types of hunger? You usually get a bunch of blank stares back. Nobody knows what what they're talking about. What is hedonic hunger? Like, people are like, I don't know. Why don't you know? Like, why aren't we talking about it? Why aren't we explaining it to people so that they can deal with it? So in the book, I have 3 golden rules, and I have 50 weight loss tips. So I tried to keep it, not just scientifically accurate, but also very, very practical. And that's what the master class is going to do as well. We're going to actually take you through that. Master class is run in conjunction with the fasting method, where you'll be able to find other people. Because the second golden rule is, the intermittent fasting. The third golden rule is find your social environment that allows you to succeed. Because doing it in a group, doing it with friends, and so on, actually increases your success rate by a lot. So again, if you have a chance, check out my website, drjasonfung.com. You can actually pre-order the book anywhere, but if you are thinking about getting it, please, you you might as well take advantage of the sort of bonuses that we're offering, since it's over $500 of bonuses for, a 30-ish dollar book. So thanks for joining me. Let me see if there's um, any questions here. And I'm glad to see everybody from all over the world. That's amazing. I think that this is actually a very, very important book, simply because it doesn't appear that anybody else is really talking about it. So I see a lot of the comments here about pre-orders. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We're trying to, get as many people to benefit from the pre-orders as we can. Anywhere that sells books should be able to pre-order it for you. So there's any of the bookstores, you just have to call them. Most of the online places as well. In the United States, of course, there's Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and you can usually talk to your independent bookstore as well. In terms of the calories, there's a comment here. My 16-year-old is obsessed with calories. Can you help her? The whole calories issue is very interesting, because um, it's so widespread, and it's so wrong, because people think that it's the entirety of what, weight loss and weight gain. It's just a math problem. It's just calories in, calories out. It's so stupid. It's just like saying, alcoholism is alcohol in minus alcohol out. So I can treat alcoholism, just drink less alcohol. It's like, that's not really very good advice. Of course, you should drink less alcohol, but until you understand why somebody is drinking too much alcohol, you'll never be able to solve them. That's why there's like 12 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, none of which is drink less alcohol, right? They're talking about emotional, spiritual, friendships, groups, all the same things that I talk about here: the support, the environment, the social, the mindset, all of these things. They talk about gratitude, mindfulness, all of the same things that we talk about in the Hunger Code. It's actually so much more important. If you think it's all about calories, you've already lost. Like, you're done. You might as well go home, because it's been tried. So many people have tried it and it doesn't work, right? People say things like, "Oh, it's all about calories." Well, think about this. What if you eat a 3-egg vegetable omelet for breakfast, 800 calories? You're going to be pretty full until lunchtime, or maybe even until dinner time, right? It's a lot to eat. What if you drank instead an 800-calorie frappuccino? You'd be hungry 5 minutes later. So why are you pretending that these two things are exactly the same? They have the same calories, yes, but they stimulate completely different hormones. The eggs and omelets and vegetables, they stimulate all these satiety hormones. They reduce your hunger, all this sort of stuff. They travel slowly through the stomach. It takes time to digest. The Frappuccino stimulates a whack load of insulin. The insulin shuttles all those calories into storage, body fat, and doesn't leave any calories for the rest of your body. So you're starving 10 minutes later. Meanwhile, you're gaining weight. It's not a problem of math. It's not a problem of thermodynamics. Anybody who says it's thermodynamics actually doesn't understand the problem at all, because it's not thermodynamics. The problem is, what does your body do with the calories that you've put in it? Does it make you full and keep you full, or does it not? Because that's important. It's like saying the money in your bank is money in minus money out. But making money is different than saving money. You can't say, if you want to save more money, make more money. No, they're different, right? You have people in the NFL who make millions of dollars who go bankrupt 3 years after they retire. Why? They made a lot of money. They didn't save a lot of money. Different. If you eat fewer calories, you might lose body fat. You may store fewer calories, or you may burn fewer calories. So very, very different. And that's what these books are about, trying to really teach you the physiologic way to look at weight gain, so that you can decide. And all it means is that some foods are more fattening than other foods. That is, brownies are more fattening than broccoli. Well, duh. Isn't that completely logical? I think so. So, why we would think differently, I have no idea. A question about Audible here. Is it going to be available on Audible? I believe so. So my publisher did make a deal with Audible. So I believe they're going to try to release it at the same time. Originally, I think the obesity code was released a little bit after, but they now they're now going to release it about the same time. They got the same person to read it from the obesity code, so it will sound the same, but it's not me. They didn't actually ask me. It's actually a really painful process. I'll tell you quickly that I did the audiobook for the diabetes code. And what you realize when you're reading out loud is that you ad lib a lot. So when you're speaking, you often add in little words or take out little words. It doesn't change the meaning of the word, but it's not exactly the same. So it was so painful. It was like literally 8 hours a day sitting in the studio reading. And every 4 or 5 words, they would stop me and say, no, you didn't say the, or, oh, it's a his instead of, him or something like that. It'd be like little crazy, silly stuff. And I remember being so happy when I could get through like 1.5 lines without getting stopped. It was terrible. But I did it because I did the diabetes code because I actually like I like it when I listen to the original author. So that's why I did it. But I don't do it anymore because they didn't even ask me. They actually wanted to get it going. They didn't want to take the time that it would take for me to do that. So, but I know a lot of you listen to the audiobooks. I do the same thing and so on. Let's see. A question about pasta has like low glycemic factor. I actually do talk about that. Pasta actually has quite a much lower glycemic index than white bread. And it's an interesting reason why. It's because the pasta, the carbohydrates are bound up in the protein. So that's the gluten. So because it's all bound up in the protein, this is called the food matrix. So the food matrix is how the food is held together. So if the food is held together very loosely and everything breaks apart, so this is ultra processed foods and white bread, commercial white bread. It's very soft. It's very easy to eat. It goes down very quickly. So it breaks apart as soon as you eat it. It goes through the stomach very quickly, and then it gets absorbed very quickly. Pasta, on the other hand, because it's bound together with a protein, and there's some egg in there as well, it actually it takes a lot longer for it to digest. And because it goes through the digestive system much slower, you get a much lower glucose rise and a lower glycemic index, and therefore less insulin effect. So, choosing pasta, if you must, instead of things like white bread, is probably a good choice. I also talk in the book about vinegar. Vinegars also slows down the digestion of carbohydrates by inactivating salivary amylases, which are the enzymes that break down the carbohydrates. So the point is that you can still eat a low insulin diet without necessarily eating a low carbohydrate diet. Eating less carbohydrates is a good way to lower, your glucose effect, your insulin effect, but there are other ways too. It's not going to bring it down to zero, of course, but on the other hand, sometimes you don't need to bring it down to zero. And that's also covered if you check out my YouTube channel. There's also a video on eating a low insulin diet. There's a question here: can you overfast? In terms of fasting, your body does eventually get used to everything. So sometimes it's good to change it up a little bit. This book is not specifically about fasting, but there are definitely some people who fast and then they find that everything starts to plateau. And it's because your body's always trying to get to that it's homeostasis. It's trying to get to that steady state. So sometimes you have to change it up. So you might want to, if you're used to fasting for 24 hours, you might go a little longer, or you might just change it up by eating very clean, for example. So there's different ways to change it up that may or may not work. And it just kind of shakes your body out of a bit of, getting too used to it. This happens a lot, especially with the shorter fast, the 16-hour fast and so on, because it's definitely, people start to plateau after a while. So, Is there anything about inflammation in the book? I don't have anything specific about inflammation. Although fasting, I'll just mention, can be quite anti-inflammatory. There are a lot of aspects to inflammation that can be helped with fasting. I think what happens is that fasting tells your body that there's no nutrients coming in. So anything that's a little bit overactive, such as inflammation, bring it down. So again, I'll tell you that I did some fasting because I had a lot of tendonitis, and nothing helped. I had it for like a year and a bit. Is bad Achilles tendon. I did ultrasound, I did stretching, I did exercise, I did all kinds of stuff. It's just a lot of stuff. And the thing is that nothing helped. And then finally, a friend of mine says, "You should try this 5-day fast." So I thought, okay, I'll try it. Prior to that, I did a lot of shorter fasts. And after the 5-day fast, and it wasn't a full fast, it's a reset fast, which is what we've been doing for many, many years. It's because we go a little longer, we don't take 0 calories. We take a little bone broth, and once a day I take a little vegetable. So something around 300 to 500 calories per day. Because a lot of the research now indicates that it actually preserves a lot of the benefits. And after that 5-day reset fast, 70% better. It was crazy how good it was. And then so I thought, well, maybe it's coincidence, even though it had been a year and a half and nothing else worked. So a couple months later, I did again, and again, 70% better. Then I did a third time, and it's gone. And I haven't had it since. I did have some knee inflammation about a couple months ago, but this time, as soon as I had a little window, because 5-day fast, you can't have like a big dinner meeting or something like that in the middle, or a big celebration. So as soon as I had a chance, I did a 5-day fast. Boom, the whole thing went away. It was crazy. And it's nobody talks about this kind of thought. It's anecdotal. I don't have a study on it, but I don't need a study. I mean, I feel 10 times better. So I think the fasting does help with the inflammation, but this book is not specifically about that. That's why we have these sessions and so on, like this master class that we're going to do. Can you send the link to the book? So I will send the link here, www.drjasonfun.com. So go to there, and then there'll be a link to buy from wherever. Is keto a good diet? Keto is definitely can work because it's a very low carbohydrate diet, and therefore it's going to be a low insulin diet. It's not an easy diet to follow, though, because it is quite restrictive. So some people might not do it, and you don't always have to stay on it 100%. You can also cycle it. There are people who use it and then go off of it and then go back on. It's okay. It doesn't matter. So yeah. A question here. I've grown with potatoes and bread, but now I'm sensitive to both. I'm not sure why, but I know a lot of people who become more sensitive to foods as they get older. Your taste changed too, because I used to hate eggplant, and now I love eggplant. I order it all the time, so it's crazy. A question about coconut fat, not coconut fat. There's nothing wrong with coconut oil, coconut fat. It's a natural fat. So I always say when you're looking at fat, it's not saturated or unsaturated. That's really the key. The key is it natural? So is the fat in a form that your body through evolution has evolved to handle? So natural fats are fats that are very close in nature. So olive oil, you take an oil, you take an olive, you squish it, you get oil. Compare that to corn oil or sunflower oil. Corn is not oily. So what you do is you have to take hexane, which is a petroleum derivative, and you have to sort of get the oil out with the hexane. Then you have to get rid of the hexane. Then you have to degum it and then deodorize it and bleach it. It's not exactly natural. It's very unnatural. Same thing with butter. It's natural. It's something that people have been eating for thousands of years. Avocados, coconut oil, all of those natural fats, dairy fat, likely they're not going to be of a problem. Question here about bone broth is magic, especially if you put some borash full of B vitamins. Yeah, I agree. The bone broth is super good because if you look at the macronutrients of bone broth, and with the Era bone broth, of course, they have the nutrition label, so you wouldn't get it if you make your own. But in the nutrition label, it's basically 15 grams of protein and nothing else. There's no carbs, there's no fat, there's nothing. They have to defat it actually so that they can actually dry it properly. Otherwise, they'll go rancid and stuff. So they actually have to take out all the fat. So if you like the fat, then it's not fatty. You have to add a little bit back yourself. I actually don't like the fat, but it does have no fat. Another question here. I am a carb addict. I prefer to fast instead of eating small portions. This is actually a really important point. Food addiction, and I cover that in the hunger code, in the second part of the hunger code. And it's on hedonic hunger. If you have an addiction, it must be treated with abstinence. If you're alcoholic, you won't say to them, hey, just have a drink. Everything in moderation. Like, you'd be the worst AA sponsor ever, right? Why? Because that one drink could lead to another drink. That's what happens with addicts. You don't say to a heroin addict, okay, just shoot up once, everything in moderation. No, that's stupid. You'd be like the worst friend that person ever had. So if you're addicted to refined carbohydrates, you need to avoid them. Why? Because once you start them, you can't stop them. That's the whole point. That doesn't happen with natural foods. If you think about what people say, I'm a carb addict, I'm a bread addict, I'm a pizza addict, I'm a chocoholic. These are all ultra processed foods. When was the last time somebody said, I'm addicted to beef? Like, I like beef, but I'm not addicted to it. It's not like I'm going to keep eating beef until, it's going to make me sick. That's just ridiculous. So the fasting is a great way to get to the bottom of that. So the whole idea is to really focus in on those things that can help. Keto is a great way to do that. Again, it's really understanding. So that's why there's like 50 tips and so on, because everybody's problem is different. So some people will be food addiction, but another person will be sleep. So you can't treat them the same, right? And that's the problem with this whole calories thing. It's like every problem has the same answer: eat fewer calories, right? It's like, that's ridiculous. It's to the man with a hammer, every problem is a nail. You can't say, okay, my problem is food addiction. Well, eat fewer calories. Did you deal with the addiction problem? If you didn't, you didn't take care of the problem. Or if the problem is, you eat too much ultra processed foods, then they say eat fewer calories. Like, what? No, if your problem is ultra processed food, eat less ultra processed food. Or if somebody says my problem is I don't sleep enough, then you say, well, to lose weight, eat fewer calories. Like, what? The problem is you didn't get enough sleep. You got to sleep more, right? And that's the whole point. If you can understand what's happening, then then you can deal with it. And really, I think that's the most important thing. We're just going to wrap up here. But again, I see John Together Strong. Thank you for being here. And it says, thank you so much. He's been following me for a while. And, I hope I've helped. That's my goal here, is to really bring together some information that's not easily available elsewhere, because it's so easy just to say, here's eat fewer calories, here's a cookbook, or the problem is you don't have enough willpower, right? Or something stupid like that. The problem is not that. The problem is complex. It's way more than just calories, way deeper than just calories. And it's time we become adults and talk about the problems, because it's physiology. It's not math. It's not a math problem. It's a problem with physiology and what we do for it. So, I think that we're gonna have a few, I'm gonna try and do a few of these before the next session. we'll try and answer a few questions. But thanks for joining me here. And again, the book is The Hunger Code. It talks about calories, why the calorie sort of view is sort of so false. Then it talks about the hunger, homeostatic hunger, hedonic hunger, and conditioned hunger, because those are the crucial things you need to understand. Some people will have problems with emotional eating, hedonic hunger. Other people will have conditioned hunger. You can't treat them the same. But if you know about it, then you can do something about it. If you do get a chance, you can also follow me on x.com as well as Instagram, on YouTube. There's a lot of videos. I try to provide all that stuff for free. I'm putting out a couple of videos now that start to talk about some of the concepts of the Hunger Code. And then, of course, if you want to pre-order the book, thank you if you do. And then please, don't forget to go to my website then and claim the sort of bonuses that were the publisher is offering. It's a great deal to really get things going, get things moving, do things all together, try and help each other get off on the right foot, trying to understand the hunger and understand what you're supposed to do about the hunger. And that's really all covered here. It's actually a very practical book. Much more than some of my other books. The Cancer Code, for example, wasn't too practical, but I actually thought it was quite fascinating. So thank you so much. One last question. There's about the Spanish version. We did also, I don't know when they're coming out, but I know we've sold some of the languages already. So Spanish language, French language, Italian, German, for sure. All of those we have publishers that we've dealt with already, Chinese, and I think Japanese as well. So, they should be available very soon. So thank you so much for joining me here. Keep an eye out. I might do another one in a week or two just to answer a few more questions, talk a bit more about this.